We've seen the reaction across risk assets in response to this report that potentially some removal of tariffs could be just the sweetener before we get a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, this has been absolutely central for China, is the removal of tariffs. They said if you want to get a full deal, a comprehensive deal, all of those tariffs will need to be removed. And if you want to get to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, then they have hinted, particularly in state media, that they want to see at least some of those tariffs rolled back. So now we're hearing, of course, from the FT that maybe the US is considering lifting the tariffs that were imposed on September the 1st on about $110 billion worth of Chinese goods. Tariffs that were valued at about 15%, by the way. Now, the debate, of course, continues within D.C., but maybe that is the price that the U.S. is willing to pay in order to get President Xi to the U.S. to sign off on the phase 1 part of the deal, because, of course, we've heard that Chinese officials are considering that and that the states of Iowa, Alaska and Hawaii are in play in terms of potential locations for signing off on that preliminary stage of the trade deal that, of course, focuses on the purchase of things like agricultural products, energy products from the U.S., as well as currency complements or currency commitments, I should say, from the Chinese side, and opening up their financial services market. So, yes, again, it does really build on the fact that these two sides are moving closer, it seems, to getting this deal locked down. And, of course, any trip to the U.S. wouldn't be risk-free for President Xi, which is maybe why we're now hearing that the U.S. is considering removing these tariffs. And, of course, in terms of the importance for China, they want to relieve the pressure on their manufacturing sector. They want to improve business sentiment because, of course, many of the data points here in the mainland point to, of course, a continuing slowdown across a number of fronts. The manufacturing sector very much under pressure, and we're even seeing some job losses in some of the parts of China where a lot of this manufacturing happens. So their focus on tariffs is, of course, and has been reiterated, and it was once again in the state media over the weekend. So they will take some heart, of course, from this reporting from the FT that maybe now the US is considering removing some of these tariffs, heading into potentially a President Xi and President Trump meeting to sign off on phase 1 at one of these states in the US at some point in November.
Well, we'll hear from President Xi Jinping directly at that import expo that you're at in Shanghai. What are we expecting?
Well, his speech is, of course, front and foremost in terms of what is the most important element of today's proceedings at the China Import Expo, expected to kick off at some point between 9:30 and 10 a.m. local time. And, of course, it's the second time that President Xi will be attending this event. It's the second year for the event. And, of course, it's an opportunity for him to, again, to burnish China's credentials as a place of free trade, a supporter of free trade, also to push back against some of the criticism for some of its trading policies and, of course, expand and build its influence in the region. In terms of his speech, of course, we'll be listening out for anything he says on the trade front, anything he says about opening up new sectors of the economy, expanding market access for foreign firms. But there is a debate as to how much this is about symbolism versus substance. We are going to see about 3,000 companies here, everyone from Tesla to AstraZeneca to Alibaba are at this event. We're going to see billions of dollars in deals signed, and you've got the likes of President Macron from France who is here for this event. But really the question is, how much detail are we going to get in the speech, and how much detail are we going to get in some of this deal making? Because the EU Chambers of Commerce put out a statement saying that last year about 50% of their companies that attended signed deals, but many of those deals actually never came to anything. So again, the EU are saying we want some concrete answers, again, on issues like state subsidies, on issues like the Buy China First policy for local and state governments here, and again, question marks over issues like data and intellectual property. All of those issues the Europeans and the US still want addressed in a more concrete way. They're hoping that maybe President Xi will move the dial on some of those issues, and maybe that some of the deal making here becomes more concrete than some of the deal making that took place at last year's event. But again, there's a lot of companies that are taking part in this event, and of course the speech is central to all of this, and whether Xi addresses trade issues is something we'll be looking at when he takes to the podium in about an hour and a half's time.